It's the most wonderful time of the gaming year.
The Gaming Lovers Podcast with Brendo and Jem.
Well, my dear Jem, do you hear those footsteps on the roof? The pitter-patter? Someone's here to give us presents. Is it Bill Gates? It might be. It's E3. I get this sort of Christmas feeling, and it's the same feeling. Because, you know, there's presents. There's like a big reveal, and you don't know quite what it is, but you get excited, and strangers present things to... That sounds so creepy.
It does. All I can picture now is Bill Gates walking on our roof, eating cake. No.
In a fluorescent green Santa suit.
You know that book?
Yes.
There's a hippopotamus on my roof eating cake. Like,
Yes.
as soon as you're like, do you hear that on the roof? I'm like, immediately, instead of Santa, I'm thinking of a hippo.
Okay, I was going for a Christmas parallel with excitable children, like my good self.
Yes, we're both very excited. This is kind of like... not quite Christmas, because obviously when it's Christmas time, that's when all the games that have been announced and hyped at E3 come out. But this is kind of the week when some new surprise games will get dropped, lots of announcements, lots of rumours confirmed or denied.
Well, it's like, as a kid for Christmas, you want a bike, and under the Christmas tree, you don't see any bike-shaped boxes. But then suddenly there is one, and it's bike-sized, and you're like, well, that pretty much confirms it.
Just you saying that actually reminds me, slightly off topic, of one Christmas. My parents told me this big box that was next to the tree was roller skates for my sister. And I remember being a little bit miffed because I'm like, she doesn't even roller skate. Why is she getting them? And then on Christmas morning, they're like, oh, this is actually yours. And so I'm thinking, oh, I'm getting roller skates. It was...
Oh, boy.
It's kind of on me because, stupid kid, that box was huge. And roller skates are not that big, the boxes. It ended up being a big dollhouse. They played me.
Okay, while we're on that topic, I had a similar thing. I used to cut out of... catalogues what I wanted, whether it be a game or a toy or, you know, that pair of pants or that puppy. You know what I mean.
Yeah.
And I adamantly wanted a Super Nintendo Entertainment System at the time. Even though, Sega household, we can be friends. Even then, I was a open-minded gamer.
Why can't we be friends? Sorry, continue.
So... in the lead up to Christmas, a Super Nintendo-sized box was under the tree. So I started telling all my friends, hey, guess what I'm getting for Christmas? Because I asked for Super Nintendo. And I got a microscope.
Ouch.
Yeah.
Oh,
it was cooler than I thought. Well, cooler, quote unquote. Cooler than I thought it was going to be.
You are a bit of a science nerd, so I imagine that appealed to you on some level. But I think when you have your heart set on one thing and it doesn't happen, if you kind of have these unmet expectations, then regardless of how good the gift is, it still feels like a letdown, unfortunately. So poor parents thinking, oh, he'll love this, he loves science, and then why is he crying?
Well, there will no doubt be some of those reactions to E3 as well, but
oh, absolutely.
That's for later on. What have you been playing?
All right, gaming goals. I am like, my goodness, Cold Steel 2 and this dungeon is like the dungeon that will never end. I feel like I keep coming up to these big boss fights and then it's like, oh wait, there's a whole nother level, and I'm like, why are you kidding me?
This is what, our 7th episode? I'm pretty sure I've heard you say you're playing or intend to beat Legend of Heroes, Trails of Cold Steel 2.
It's just a huge final section, and because you need your entire party to be leveled up to a certain spot as well, you kind of have to repeat bits to kind of make sure that everyone's at an equal level, and you don't have some people that are like 150 and then others that are just still at 100, you know, like it's...
Now, when you say your entire party, you mean like 6 or 7?
No, there's like 12.
That's a bit of work.
That's why with JRPGs especially, there's lots of grinding. It's exhausting, but worth it. It's close. It's definitely closer. I feel like hopefully within the next week or so I should have this finally wrapped up. But I am making progress with Guardians of the Galaxy. I have 1 episode left. So I did 2 of those this past week.
Telltale's
Booyah,
Guardians
booyah.
of the Galaxy.
Yeah.
5 episodes in total. You've done
4.
4.
Yep.
Not bad.
So I'm ahead of you, I believe, with that one.
You are. Yeah. I don't have an excuse. You're handy for
I'm
that.
just trying not to play it around you because I don't want to risk spoilers because it's such a story-heavy game.
I'll get to that.
Mm-hmm.
I will. They're good for sick days.
Absolutely. But you've got a lot on your plate.
I do have usually quite a bit on my buffet-sized silver platter of Brendo's gaming goals. I did say I was going to play The Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past, which I did not. And there's a good reason for that, because I needed a new handheld game to take to work with me. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to play one of the older Zelda games.
Which one?
I got the Game Boy Color edition of Legend of Zelda: Link's Awakening DX. Starting to sound like a Street Fighter title.
DX, that just reminds me of wrestling.
Just maintenance. Well, Link does wear a lot of green. He would fit right in.
There's so many things I want to say, but I'm like, I don't know if that's appropriate.
You think you can tell him what to do? Dunk, dunk. Anyway, I started and finished that this whole week because I enjoyed it a lot. And those are the sort of games that you can play and you think, I'm doing so well, and suddenly you hit like the 7th or 8th dungeon and you're like, I need a guide because I'm out of my depth.
How many Zelda games has that been just in the past few weeks that you have just torn through?
It's the...
And suddenly there's a motorcycle engine just running in the booth.
It's the 3rd, I think. I beat Breath of the Wild, Ocarina of Time 3DS, and now a retro one. So I've had like 3 different styles of Zelda. It's because it was the deluxe edition.
Oh, right.
It was in colour now.
So
colour.
No Triple H or Shawn Michaels.
I'm sure you could name your character HHH if you wanted to.
I guess you could.
And then the owl would flap down and go, oh, there you are, Triple H. I've been looking for you.
Listen.
The joy of being able to name characters, whatever you want. But on a console, I was dibbling and dabbling. Dibbling? That's not a word at all. Dabbling is. Dibbling and dabbling. Well, put that on a t-shirt. I tried out The Witness for the first time because I was in a mood where I didn't know what I wanted to play, so I just spun the roulette wheel and went, I'm playing that. Puzzle game, you're on an island, you just puzzles galore everywhere, and never do games make you feel so smart and yet so dumb as puzzle games do, because you feel like on top of the world when you've solved 10 puzzles in a go, and then crash down to reality when you're sitting there banging your head against the single puzzle for the next half an hour, and then you just throw the controller and go, I don't want to play this game anymore. That's been my Witness review.
That feels like me. I've been playing next to you on the Switch, Puyo Puyo Tetris.
Yes.
Trying to unlock new characters and levels, because when we have certain friends over, they enjoy playing like the arcade multiplayer with us, because it can have 4 people playing locally, competing against each other. And so I wanted to unlock more levels and more characters and things. And to do that, you have to go through the painful story that's in it.
Can you just give us an example of some of the award-winning dialogue?
Well, actually, those are not as annoying as some of the other stuff. Some of the stuff, with just general dialogue is probably more painful than the ones that just speak in... Just say they're like Pokemon, where everything they say is
We've
their name.
activated the Tetris machine and we're off to the next area.
Oh my! Why? Thank you. It's just.
What is this happening? It's disastrous.
Thankfully you can kind of skip through it. But some of our favourite voice actors from various other JRPGs that have been dubbed or even anime are actually in this. So a part of me has been listening to it and putting myself through this just to listen to them because I respect them as performers.
It's voice training for you.
You
do the good jobs, you do the...
To be fair, they're still good actors even if the dialogue is absolute crap. So that's one thing to appreciate, is that they can still make really bad writing not as bad But anyway, that was not the point I was making. There was one particular boss fight at the end of a section of the story that, like, the level, like, it had been kind of through the tutorial levels, and then it ramped up difficulty, like, it just made this huge leap. And I could not get past this guy. And I played for a couple of times, just over and over again, this one section trying to get past it. And you were sitting next to me and you just see, like, steam coming out of my head. Or, like, why can I not get past this level?
Like you said, there was a large difficulty leap because you went from victory to suddenly, I lost.
Owned.
Oh, I really lost.
Yeah.
Oh, that's not fair. Hey, what are you doing? You can't do that. Where's my Tetrises? I hit him with everything.
Mm-hmm. And not just getting beaten, you know, like by just missing the mark. It was getting smashed very suddenly out of the blue. Like, how did I get beaten that fast? It's insane. And sometimes there are a lot of Japanese games that can do that to you. I know Sword Art Online did that to me as well, that first boss fight that you play.
Yeah, that's a steep learning curve on that one.
And I know a lot of people quit there because it's so stupid and you have to just grind in the most boring section of the game to try to level up to actually get past that thing. And then nothing else is as difficult.
Yep.
Which is just bad logic and bad plan. Anyway, we're getting really sidetracked.
But in true gaming fashion, you tried that 20 times in one session, gave up, came back the next day, first go you did it.
Yes. After a couple of days of going back and forth to that, I had to put it down a few times because you could see me getting, like, very upset at just how stupid it was. So I'm glad it's passed. But yeah, there are definitely moments where video games can push our buttons.
Oh boy,
we're supposed to be pushing their buttons.
Oh, no.
It's not supposed to go the other way around.
But how good's the relief once you actually get past something like that?
It's good. Well, as we wrap up gaming goals, one last update. Finally finished A Way Out with Natalie.
How was that?
It was good. I don't want to spoil anything. What we're trying to do is gather everyone together so we can talk about how we went with our playthroughs and the different outcomes that we had in it. When we get Mel and Steve and Nat and everyone together. So when we can organise the time...
They need more exciting names.
We'll have to give them proper naming, like video game names, like avatars or something. Gamer tags. Maybe they can decide their own when we get together.
Nah, we'll choose theirs. That'll be more interesting.
I don't know if they'll go down with that. But yeah, when we get together, we might even do like a special spoiler-filled episode of the podcast, so keep an eye out for that in a week or two. Hopefully we can get that up and running. So yeah, I'm excited. I want to talk about it, but I don't want to spoil anything.
It'll be like a special episode.
Yes. And so that way people know that it's just chock full of spoilers. So if you don't want it spoiled for you, you have time to go out and play it. It's not a long game, but it is co-op, so you do need a buddy to play with.
Do you recommend it?
Obviously it's not for kids. Because it's, MA? Yeah. It's a good game and good at getting you to work together as a team. It's got an interesting story and an interesting ending. And I want to say more, but any more I say could ruin the experience. So, yeah, but I think it's definitely worth at least playing once.
Good.
Yeah.
Now they know they have to go out and play it to listen to this podcast.
Exactly.
Well, not this podcast, that podcast.
Yeah, if you want to listen to the episode, we would recommend playing it through first if you can. At the end of the episode, we'll cover some more gaming goals and update and add some more challenges to our plate.
It's like eating at Sizzler. You empty off that plate and you go, oh, what else can I go put on this? Or you can eat buffet.
You make it, but that makes it sound like all that we're putting on our plate is just like subpar food. No offense, Sizzler, but...
Have you seen some of the games that I play voluntarily?
Share the love. Follow us on Twitter at Brendo and Jem. That's BrendoJem. On our website at thegaminglovers.com, there is a little button on the right-hand side where people can say, join the podcast, and they push it, and they can record like a short 90-second message. Isn't that right?
Yes, it is. And we actually received a message not too long ago.
Hey guys, love the podcast. I'm just wondering what E3 stands for, and are you able to give me some explanation on some of your lingo? Because I'm new to the gaming world and don't fully understand all that you're saying. Thanks.
Good question. So many times I'll just say things like I'll use slang or lingo and expect the person I'm talking to understand what I'm saying. Because like when we talk about gaming, we know pretty much the ins and outs and understand everything. And because we're in a little room talking to each other, we forget about the people listening may not understand everything that we're saying.
Did you see that ludicrous display last night?
Thanks, Moss.
When people are sports fans and they talk sports and they're talking about how many overs, how many wickets, how many things. If you're walking in blind, you don't know what you're talking about. It's jibber jabber.
Absolutely.
People talking about cars, they're telling me about how many litres their engine is and what wheels it has. I don't know cars. If I listen to a cars podcast and I wanted to get into cars, I might need an intro into that.
So with that in mind, we thought we would put this together, a really quick cheat sheet for you, a rundown of acronyms or expressions or lingo that we use on a regular basis that you might have already heard on the podcast, and just a quick explanation of what it is, so that way you too can pretend like you understand all the things that we're saying about gaming. And for those who already know the expressions, you can have a laugh at just some of the stories that go along with some of these particular favourites, or perhaps even hated expressions that we use in our gaming community.
Well, hang on. To make this a little more interesting for myself and to make it a little quicker for those who are already familiar with this content, we're going to do this like speed chess.
Oh, no.
You're going to hit me with a acronym or a topic or a
Phrase?
Term,
Okay.
might not be a whole phrase.
Yep.
A rolling stone gathers no moss. That's a proverb. What am I even talking about? You're going to hit me with something. I'm going to answer as quick as I can. And if you have to, many podcast apps have the different speed settings. You can play a podcast at double speed or half speed or even more extreme. So if you don't hear what I say, make sure you hit that slow-mo button. I don't know. What do you think?
That would just be a fun way to listen to our podcasts all the time, especially for those listening in the States who maybe think our Australian accents are hard to follow. You might want to slow us down because we tend to speak fast.
Well, we get nervous.
That's not nerves. That's just natural. You should hear us talk when, like, we've got a bunch of family around. Then that's another level of speed. Off topic. Okay,
and go.
DLC.
DLC, downloadable content when you have a main game and you can purchase extra bits that go on, continue the story, more levels, etc., etc.
Ding. Your turn.
Okay. XP or EXP.
Experience points. So if you're playing an RPG or something where you level up progressively, those points help you get to each level.
Bing.
AAA games.
They're the big budget developers and their big projects that have millions and millions of dollars bankrolling their projects. They've got all the money, they've got all the time, maybe not always, but they put out the high quality games with big polish.
Ding.
Grinding.
Ooh, yay. Super boring. Usually you spend hours and hours repeating a level or a mechanic of a game to raise your level. Experience points coming back. Ding. Glitching.
Glitching is when there's a buggy or broken part of the game that suddenly stops working. The way that it should, and leaves
you've run out of time.
Oh, sorry. Bing. FPS.
First-person shooter, so a game like Borderlands or even the old 007 GoldenEye games on Nintendo 64 where you can see your hands and the gun, but not your whole body. It's usually kind of bouncy and makes me feel a little bit sick.
Right.
Ding.
Time out.
What?
FPS can also mean frames per second, which plays depending on how smooth the gameplay is. How fast the processor is can affect if the game is choppy. Looks like it's running like a stop-motion claymation figurines, or it can be as smooth as butter. And also, on the topic of first-person shooters, if you are someone who feels nauseous playing them, if you can remove the head bob or even just adding a fixed crosshair something for your eyes to focus on in the middle of the screen.
Mm-hmm.
A simple dot there. It solves a lot of problems for a great many game wannabes.
There you go. Some tips and advice from Brendo.
Just don't pronounce it wannabes, because that just makes you sound like you want small bugs that produce honey.
All right, on the flip side, third person.
Third person. If you imagine a first person being the camera set inside the player's head, which sounds gruesome, but a third person, the camera is behind them. Imagine a drone or a long selfie stick following the character, and that's where you see the camera from. Bing.
My favourite way to play.
MMO.
Massively multiplayer online games. World of Warcraft, anyone? Ding. RPGs.
You mean rocket-propelled grenades? No, I don't think so. Although they are a weapon in many video games. Role-playing games. They are games where usually you have levels, you have skills, you have side quests, you have an open world to explore. The world is your oyster. You have dialogue choices. You can help farmers and you can help space orphans, whatever you want.
Or you can destroy their chickens.
Oh, how dare you. What about a JRPG?
Similar to the Western RPGs, a Japanese role-playing game where you usually play as a male high school student who saves the world at night and then has perfect school grades by day. It's a super fantasy realm.
What are you laughing about? I'm sure that's how things actually go in Japan. It's a magical place.
Yes, where you peak in high school and then the rest of your life is just sadness. Ding.
Is there some regrets there?
No, I did not peak in high school, so it's all good.
Oh, good. Nice.
PvP.
Oh, you're the character in Puyo Puyo. Sorry, what was the term?
PvP.
Okay, unlike a cooperative or just a open world game where you can all interact together and there's no conflict or anything, PvP is specifically you against another human somewhere on the earth playing for your virtual lives against each other.
So a lot of fighting games.
Fighting games, but more like World of Warcraft, for example. You've got areas you can just explore with other players. There's areas where you can actively try to kill other players. Mm-hmm. You can enter the PvP or the PvE, which is player versus enemy. Bing! What about an NPC?
Ooh, non-player characters. So in RPGs, any character in the game that isn't, well, you, party members, unless you get to control them at some stage in the game, like in Dragon Age, or you've got townsfolk, quest givers, etc., they are considered NPCs. However, some games, party members are still considered NPCs because they're not the protagonist of the game, which is the main character. Ding! Noob. N00B.
That better not be aimed at me.
Yeah, noob.
Well, that's short for newbie.
Yes.
And usually that'll get thrown at you if you play a game where you're against other players and you are bad.
Yep.
If your shooting is horribly inaccurate or you run off a cliff, you will be called a noob, and it will usually be by somebody who has not even hit puberty yet.
Usually the case, yes, because that's usually who you're playing with a lot of MMOs.
What's a FTW? No, not WTF. FTW.
For the win! The
All right.
doy. Bing. Pwned.
Pwned. PWNED.
I hate this one.
Well, originally, it started off as owned, OWNED. When you kill someone, you have owned them. You have just taken over. You're the new sheriff in town, and people misspelt it, and suddenly it became PWN to mean that you have taken someone out.
And hearing someone say it like, I pwned you, just sounds so stupid. Like, it makes sense in a typing setting, but to say it verbally is just, I hate it. I hate it. Sorry.
Ping. Camping. Get your sleeping bag ready.
Yep, this is me when I play laser tag. It's a legitimate strategy. Someone who hides in one spot in a shooter game like Halo, Call of Duty, Fortnite, etc., and then they jump other players as they walk by.
That's a disgraceful strategy.
It's not disgraceful. It's legitimate. Ding.
What do you got for me?
Spammer.
Spammer. Fighting games. You've got those who try and perfect the combos with ultimate precision, perfect judgment, perfect timing, and then you've got players like Jem who just mash all the buttons and usually will beat you, and there's no strategy in that.
You're just salty.
Yes, I am. Bing! Spray and pray.
Ew, that sounds so gross.
That's when you sneeze while attempting to communicate with a...
No, spray and pray is in like a shooter game, and you kind of, in movies when someone's got like those big Gatling guns and they just charge in there and they go, ah! It's like that. And you kind of pray that you don't get killed while you are just spraying the room with bullets.
Okay, were they actually shooting, or were you just being electrocuted by your voice equipment?
No, if I was being electrocuted, my voice would be much more high pitched.
Okay, good to know.
Yeah.
That's an important thing to know the difference.
Yeah,
between.
James Arnold Taylor taught me the difference.
Ah.
Name dropping. Anyway.
Voice of
ding.
Ratchet.
Lag. Are you... Oh my goodness, you got it. This is driving me bonkers.
I'll answer it very quickly for you.
You're on a timer here. Run out of time.
Lag is a general tech term when it comes to slow internet and ruin your line gaming.
So annoying.
Yes, when you're playing an online multiplayer game, the last thing you want is for your internet speed to not live up to the pace that you're trying to input commands.
Which is why you don't want to be playing against a country that has far better internet than you do, because even if you've got better skills in the game, their internet, if it's faster, it will give them better reaction times, and unfortunately lag can be death for many gamers.
And although it doesn't seem like it would be that big a deal, there is a difference in milliseconds.
Yes.
When it comes to online gaming.
Absolutely.
So lag is when your internet does not live up to its advertised ability to transmit data.
Moment of silence for the NBN. Ding.
What about an RTS?
RTS stands for real-time strategy games. So usually the top-down, kind of like a bird's eye view from the sky, unit control games like Warcraft.
Do you know what the other type of strategy game is?
The turn-based strategy.
Mm-hmm. Turn-based strategy, or Japanese RPGs can have turn-based combat. Mm-hmm. What does that mean?
Well, you can pause, you take turns. Each person or player or NPC or enemy has their scheduled turn, and you have to wait. But it gives you time to think and plan ahead.
They're very polite in the battlefield.
Very honourable. Ding. ATB.
The old active time battle. Sort of like a hybrid between the two. Common in earlier Final Fantasy games. You would have a little action bar. When that fills up, you can input your command.
Nice. Bing.
What about a MOBA? M-O-B-A.
Multiplayer Online Battle Arena.
What does that mean?
So when you have esports and you've got like full-on just leagues of people playing together as a team against another huge team, and they completely obliterate each other and make a crap load of money doing it.
I wish I was skilled and rich.
Ding. Sim.
Oh, that's a tricky one. It might be a simulation game. It could be anything from The Sims or SimCity or Theme Park World, where you create a thing. It could be a flight simulator, which I used to love back in the day. It could be a surgeon simulator, where you drop a hacksaw into someone's ribcage by accident and then their heart rolls out the back of the ambulance. Or it could be a goat simulator, which pretty much explains it all.
Yes. So much fun, though.
Ding! What about Sandbox?
A sandbox is a game that lets you explore and create or destroy at your own pace. Something like Minecraft or even Grand Theft Auto, the open world is kind of considered a sandbox for you to play in and just do whatever you want. Ding!
Nice.
Exploit.
Exploit. My kind of favourite thing in games, because they are sort of loopholes, whether they're a bug or a bad design, or, for example, if you can buy a piece of armour for 50 gold and then sell it for 55, guess what you're probably going to buy 100 of and then sell 100 of? That's like an exploit.
Yep.
You can sort of cheat to do things within the game, like no external cheating needed.
They're hacking.
Exactly. But you can, work the game to your advantage.
Mm-hmm.
Ding. What is an aimbot, my dear?
An aimbot is a cheat that some people will use in online shooters to help them auto-aim for headshots. And you'll notice that even if you're not using an aimbot to be a really good shooter, that people will accuse you of using that hack because you're just really good.
Well, there is a difference between being incredibly skilled and running into the middle of a level and shooting in 12 different directions with 12 different shots within the span of a second and killing 12 characters.
Absolutely. Ding. Frag.
Well, everybody knows what a frag grenade is. It's a grenade that explodes into pieces. Well, back in the days of Quake and Doom, when you killed a character, they exploded into pieces. So it was a simplified gaming term for one kill. Ding! Level up.
Most games have some form of level system with experience points that help you grow. Usually requires some grinding to get it, especially if you want to take out a secret super boss that is hidden in the level, like, I don't know, the Reaper in Persona. Yowza.
Why do I do this? I always try to fight them in Final Fantasy games and it never goes well.
No. Ding. Rage quit.
Trying to fight a super boss in a Final Fantasy game is usually enough to make you want to rage quit. That is where you have hit your limit as far as your ability to withstand the repeated failure or being defeated at the last second, and controllers can fly. Or if you're playing online, you can usually just quit. Not even play out the whole game. Ding. What is a boss?
A boss is not your employer. No, in video games, a boss is a difficult fight or enemy that is at various checkpoints throughout a game, with usually the final boss being the toughest, with, of course, the exception being in certain games where they have hidden secret bosses that are incredibly hard to defeat, usually found in a lot of JRPGs.
Unless you count the early Metal Gear games where Big Boss, who is your boss, turns out to be the boss.
Inception. Ding. Buff.
A buff is usually found in any game where you can get a stat upgrade, usually temporarily, to your defense or your strength or anything like that. And counterpoint, a debuff does the exact opposite. It's when the enemy hits you with something, suddenly your defense is down, your attack's down, your speed's down, your characters are asleep. No, it's actually a status ailment. What is a status ailment, my dear? Ding!
You've already explained it for me. I don't need a ding.
It's when you're asleep or berserked or paralysed or possessed or petrified. I knew I could think of a third P. Anything that pretty much renders your party members out of action. Whose turn is it?
Mine.
Okay.
Well, you've got to do the ding.
A ding. Bug.
A bug is a error in game coding or design. Ding. One of your favourites. Visual novel.
I do love a good visual novel. Imagine a book that is reading itself to you. Like an audiobook, but you've also got the characters on screen. You can see their reactions. You can see their facial expressions. You can see the disaster that's befalling them. It's wonderful. Lots of reading can be involved. A lot of them these days don't get fully translated, so if you don't mind the Japanese audio, you still have subtitles, just like if you're watching an anime series or if you're playing any other game that doesn't have an English dub. There are often many cheesy romances involved with harems, which, would you like to explain that one? Or shall we just move on?
I don't know if harems is a specific gaming term, so people can do their own.
Ding! Dungeon crawler.
Usually linked with RPGs and JRPGs like Persona, where the areas that you search when you are in combat are set out like these little dungeons with set maps and areas with perhaps traps or triggers or chests, things like that. Ding. DPS.
Damage per second. It'll be usually in some sort of game where you've got different equipment, different stats, different levels, and maybe you'll have a big warrior who hits for 1,000 damage, but he can only attack once every 5 seconds. So his DPS would be 200. Whereas you might have a quick rogue with backstabbing abilities, 2 weapons, 1 in each hand, who can hit like... And they only do like 20 damage each, but overall they have a higher damage per second. Ding! What is an Easter egg, my dear?
They're delicious.
Please don't eat it.
Chocolate? No.
Gaming Easter eggs. I knew you would go for that.
I love chocolate. In video game terms, an Easter egg, much like in movies or TV shows these days, is a hidden joke or a reference that is built into the game that you can find or trigger by usually going out of your way to find it. And sometimes they're put in there just to make the developers laugh and have absolutely no meaning to the game or anything else. But oftentimes there might be if a developer has multiple games or a studio has multiple games that they've made, they might have a reference to one video game in another so that people who've played both will kind of recognise those things.
And they're usually not out in the open.
No.
They are hidden, just like
Just subtly put in there.
an Easter egg.
Ding. What's an engine?
It's in cars and it
No.
goes vroom vroom.
I thought you said that you knew nothing about cars earlier.
Well, that's as far as I know. They go vroom vroom. You put petrol in it and vroom vroom.
Is that how it works with video games?
Oh, not quite. Don't put petrol in your video games, kids. That's not going to go well. The engine is sort of the tool set that the developers have used to make the game. They usually start with a set engine. There's some like Infinity, there's Frostbite, there's Unreal. They start with those. They put bits in, they put textures in, they put coding in. Suddenly you have a game, a full working game, or you have Mass Effect Andromeda. Bing! What is a fetch quest?
Fetch quests are those joyful things that NPCs will give you in RPGs. Like, hey, I need 5 goat skins. Can you get them for me? And then you go and do it, and then they might give you something in return. It's lots of just little filler quests generally.
Well, there is absolutely nothing more annoying than a fetch quest. What's next?
Ding. Escort mission.
The only thing more annoying than a fetch quest. Escort missions where you get tasked with, okay, protect this character. He has health. Don't let him die. And you're the one doing all the fighting, and this stupid kid that you're supposed to protect has wandered off and is glitching behind a rock, and you can't get him back on the path, and there's goblins everywhere, and the kid's dying, and you're like, I'm doing my part, kid. Why can't you? Bing. What'd you say about filler quests? What is a filler?
Filler is like many fetch quests. They kind of go hand in hand. It is content used to kind of bloat the game to give it the feeling like that there is more meat to a game when it's really just fat.
Delicious.
So that the developers and studios can brag about how long their gameplay is, when really it's not as big as they're saying. Yeah. Ding.
Ding.
GG.
GG, man, GG.
GG.
Good game. Good game, man, good game. That's the translation. As opposed to being called a noob or any other profanity, nice gamers will usually hit you with a GG in the text box after the game. As if to say, hey, that was fun. Let's do it again sometime.
Good game, man.
Bing! What about an IP?
IP stands for intellectual property. So with E3 on at the moment, we are very excited for any time that they announce new IPs, because it means it's a brand new game, not a sequel, and it's been copyrighted, so that is why it's called an IP. Ding.
How have we not talked about E3 yet on this list? Let's do that now.
Ding. E3. What does E3 stand for?
E3 is the Electronic Entertainment Expo.
Mm-hmm.
And it is when all the gaming developers and all the gaming hardware companies and all the gaming fans all swarm towards Los Angeles, usually sort of late May, June, so that sort of time frame, to reveal all their works in progress. Well, maybe not all of them, but a lot of them.
Mm-hmm.
Gamers get excited because their new favourite series gets a new entrance, and the developers get excited because the people get excited, and yeah, it's fun, and game reveals are always fun, even if they're years and years away from being finished. Bing! What's a loading screen?
The most boring part of the game. It is the bit where...
Oh, I could throw some other examples out there, but...
No, it is just the bit where it's like usually a static screen and it says loading, ...
Good.
Loading.
Good game developers use loading screens to their advantage.
They do.
Skyrim, those sort of games, for example, will show little bits of lore or little bits of tips to help you.
There are some games that will hide loading screens altogether. Like you might be walking through a really long corridor or something and you never actually see the loading screen because you're walking through it. And so it'll have basic textures and things disguising the fact that you're actually transitioning from one area to another.
God of War does that very well. I don't think I saw a single loading screen that whole game.
There you go.
Except for when I started my save file.
Bing. What is an OP?
OP is overpowered. If you have a specific weapon that completely breaks the game because it is far too strong, like the boomerang in Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening DX, that could kill some bosses in one shot. And that was quite OP. Bing! Patch time. What's a patch?
It is something that the developers will release sporadically to fix bugs in games. Now, obviously, in old games, that wasn't really a thing because they didn't have the internet so that they couldn't send these updates. But in modern games, and even for the consoles themselves, there will be regular patches which downloads and helps fix, kind of like fixing a rip in your jeans. You put a patch to fix that little hole.
Yep, and fun fact, if you're planning a gaming sesh with your buddies, a bit of couch co-op perhaps, bit of some sort of, get together, you want to play through a game with your buddy, make sure it's installed, make sure your system's updated, make sure the game's patched before you start the session, or you'll probably be sitting on your hands for 3 hours.
Depending on how fast your internet is. Ding! Quick time event.
Innovated by my boys over at Sega with Shenmue.
Sega.
Usually that means a button prompt appears on the screen. It'll say circle, and you push circle, or depending on your console, it'll say Y, and you push Y, or push left, and you push left. And if you don't, you'll probably get punched in the face, or something to that effect. You'll have a limited time to react, and it's fun. Some games use them very well. I quite liked the slow, deliberate controller movements of Heavy Rain when you're trying to shave his face, and you want to move it just slowly. Otherwise, you get.
Although it can be quite stressful when you know, especially in games like Heavy Rain, where if you fail, your character can die and it's not going back to the start of that section. No, that character is dead for the rest of the game. So, depends on how it's used.
No pressure.
No.
Bing! What's a rail shooter or an on-rail shooter?
Rail shooter, you are constantly moving forward. I know what's a rail shooter. Pokemon Snap.
There, you wouldn't be wrong, and I was hoping we could get through this episode without it referenced.
I found
You
a way to
snuck
bring
that
it
one
in,
in
I
there.
found a way to bring it in, I found a way to bring it in. So basically, you're constantly moving forward and you shoot. And in this case, shooting is a photo shoot. Ah! Bing! Speedrun.
Speedrun, my favourite. I used to quite enjoy speedrunning a game. You would go from the start to the end as quick as you can, sometimes using exploits, sometimes using glitches, sometimes using nothing more than your memory and skill.
Yes.
I beat the original Silent Hill in less than an hour
There you go.
using just my own brain, and I was quite impressed with that. However, there are certain events, there's a couple of them a year, games done quick, where speedrunners from all around the world gather together on a schedule, and my goodness, they break games to pieces and get 100% of all items in Banjo-Kazooie in 2 hours. And I'm like, what?
Yep.
That's so cool.
They break records, but they do it for a good cause. They raise money while they do it, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and it's kind of enjoyable to, on a lunch break, bring it up, watch someone beat a game that's usually 8 to 9 hours in 36 minutes. There was one that I really enjoyed. This is a bit longer, but there was one of Star Wars Dark Forces 2, Jedi Knight,
Yep.
where they beat a level by detonating 6 grenades at their own feet at the same time, which hurled their body over the level. The body hit the exit point of the level, and it counted as the level being completed. Now, that was brilliant.
And that didn't count as them dying?
No, they died, but it was press the button to respawn, but they didn't push the button. The body just floated over the entire level of Nar Shaddaa or wherever it was. But yeah, it's a good cause for the charity. They raise a lot of money, and it's always fun. 24-hour streams, so any time of the day you can tune in to see someone beating Mega Man or something. It's great. I love it. Bing. What is a stealth section, and why is it seemingly mandatory in every game?
It didn't used to be. I'm not the biggest fan of stealth, especially if it's in a game that was never supposed to have it in the first place. When they shoehorned it into Dragon Age 2 in some of the DLC, that was terrible stealth.
They're usually the worst part of any game. The Zelda games I've played recently, I hated all the stealth sections in those. They're never done well.
So stealth is where you're supposed to be very, very sneaky. You usually stick to the shadows. Sometimes you can go invisible depending on what game you're playing and what characteristics or perks you have. But your job is to remain unseen, whether it's going through long grass or, knocking opponents or enemies out from behind. All of these mechanics come in to make it a stealth game or stealth section. Some games do this incredibly well, like Metal Gear. Others, not so much. Ding. Text adventure.
Oh, that brings me back. There are games before there was wonderful 4K high-def monitors. You were looking at probably a black screen with white or light murky mustard-coloured text. And it would explain where you were and what was happening, and you would have to input commands, very specific commands, mind you, to actually progress the story. You are in a dark prison cell with nothing there but a small candle. Okay, pick up candle.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you have picked up the candle. And if you didn't get the wording and the syntax just right, you were stuck.
Mm-hmm.
Thankfully, we have moved on. However, there are games still coming out using very similar things.
Mm-hmm.
There's the infectious madness of Dr. Decker, I think, just came out. It's an FMV game, little bonus one, full motion video. It has live actors doing like interviews. You're interviewing them about the death of their psychiatrist, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And you actually write out questions. And it has like 1,700 recorded clips. So if you ask something, they probably will know what you're talking about.
Yep.
Did you kill Dr. Decker? The end.
It is a slightly dying art, but there are some really, avid fans who still make like a lot of fan-made games and will put them on Steam and the like for people to play.
What is Steam? Bing.
Steam is a online digital store for video games, typically PCs.
Easy peasy.
Yep.
They're in the news recently because they were getting conflict because of the restrictions. They were saying, no, you can't publish that game here, you can't publish that game. People were saying, where's the freedom of art and blah, blah, blah. So they went, well, you know what? Stuff you all. Everything can go on there unless it's flat out illegal or trolling.
Mm-hmm.
And that is going to cause some disasters, I can tell you now.
Especially because different countries have different laws about what's okay to be in games. And if you can download anything online without it first being checked by local laws, you could end up downloading something that, while it may not be illegal if you were playing it in one country, could be very much illegal playing it here. So because Steam have decided that they're not policing it, that means we have to police it, which, frankly, doesn't usually end well.
So you're more worried about the moral side of things. I'm just worried about the shovelware that's going to come out. Shovelware, which is a type of game that is absolute garbage and should never have been released in the first place. I could literally make a game that just has a blank screen and call it Blank Screen Simulator and charge people $6 and they might buy it.
Should totally do it.
Actually.
Coming soon from the Gaming Lovers Studios.
Blank Screen Simulator. The plot twist is...
It's not a blank screen.
It's not. It's so good.
Oh, goodness. Those are what we think are at least the most common used acronyms and phrases and lingo when it comes to video games. If we've missed any, feel free to let us know. You can comment, send us a tweet, or you can send us a message on our Facebook page at facebook.com/thegaminglovers, or send us an audio message yourself through our website at thegaminglovers.com. If you have any questions or comments for our podcasts, might even get featured on here.
Yeah. If you've got any topics, suggestions, anything you want us to talk about, hit us up. We're everywhere. Facebook, Twitter, internet,
space,
text adventure, blank screen simulator. We got it all covered.
I think it's time for us to dig into some E3 news. Share the love. Like us on Facebook at facebook.com/thegaminglovers.
It's the most wonderful time of the gaming year.
It's E3, baby!
It's actually happening as we record this.
Yes.
We're about halfway through the major press conferences.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen the EA press conference. They got sort of a lukewarm response from the crowd. They were a little hesitant
Bit hit and miss.
to commit fully to supporting their products.
Yeah, that and some awkward presenters and people asking questions. Just, some flat notes in that. But that's sometimes the things that we love, the awkward moments.
Yeah,
Anyway.
we love them, but we
train wrecks.
really think, what are we even watching here?
I know.
The Microsoft press conference has also happened. They hit it out of the park, in my opinion. They promised 50 50 games to be featured.
Mm-hmm.
Like 15 world exclusives, brand new, and boy, they delivered.
Yeah.
I'm pretty happy with how they went with that.
Yep.
And Bethesda, boy, we had some low points. Are you ready to rage? Are you ready to rage?
No.
Are you ready to
Stop
rage?
it. Why have live music unless it's like a really, like a band that everyone loves? Sure.
If it's relevant to the title, maybe. Like a
But
Guitar Hero or
that would
something
work.
to that effect. But for a first-person shooter,
But mercifully, they recovered, and it got much, much better after that.
boy, did it.
Probably my favorite, actually.
Big props to Todd Howard.
Yes. Todd Howard, you the man of
Probably
E3.
the best presenter I've ever seen.
Yes.
In all of the E3s.
Engaging, funny. His jokes actually landed.
Yeah, well, who would have thought?
I know.
I wasn't sure it was possible after the previous ones.
Oh, no.
All right, but give us a quick rundown. What did EA reveal at E3?
Okay, so it started off with a quick teaser with, like, I don't know if it was 3D or augmented reality, but of Anthem with, like, two of the people in the suits, the exoskeleton suits, fighting some monster and teasing it. So they dug into that. They also had Casey Hudson, who was one of the main writers in, like, the Mass Effect trilogy, and he's been working on Anthem. He and a couple others came out and answered questions about that. So that was one of the main things that EA covered in their conference this year. We had a lot of FIFA, Madden, and NBA, which is pretty typical, pretty standard.
EA Sports.
Yeah.
It's in the game.
It wouldn't be an EA presentation without them.
Well, they're major franchises for them.
Absolutely. There was some Star Wars awkwardness on two different levels. I like that with Battlefront 2 that they kind of apologised for the flubs, for the loot boxes, for the controversy, and with the unfair, like, advantages people had with, like, super leveling up because they paid for it.
Especially in a competitive multiplayer environment. If you're
Yeah.
doing that in a single player and you want to cut out some of the grind work, that's fine. But to do it in a multiplayer experience, they made a big mistake.
Huge.
They admitted basically that they made a big mistake.
Mm-hmm.
And now they're still showing the new DLC and things like that they're bringing out. And
Yeah.
hopefully, you know, they
hitting
have a better reaction.
restart, kind of taking some of those things out, putting things in that the gamers have wanted, like Clone Wars, and I'm kind of got my fingers crossed hoping that James Arnold Taylor will be in there.
Yes, you're a big fan of JAT.
I am indeed. But the other Star Wars moment that was really cringeworthy was the announcement of a new Star Wars game, the Jedi Fallen Order, and this chick with red hair, I forgot her name, but she was interviewing, and she was kind of like the MC of that particular press conference, right?
She was terrible.
Oh, she wasn't bad in some sections. The parts when she's reading from the teleprompter, fine, you know, clear and precise. But when she had to ad-lib and ask questions...
And he's saying that this new Jedi Fallen Order game is going to be set as the Jedis are being hunted, and you're going to be playing as a Jedi, and she's asking the stupidest questions.
Like, do I get to use a lightsaber? Really?
And when
really?
is this set?
And he explains it, and she's like, is it going to be fun? He's like, no, it's going to be dark.
You're being hunted!
And
This ain't a picnic.
it was all spelt out, and this guy, you could just see visibly on his face, is like going, this is the best person you could get to interview. Like, we could have explained it better just on our own. Like, come on, guys. So that was part of the train wreck that we enjoyed at the EA conference. There was also Battlefield 5.
Battlefield 5, which has its own Battle Royale mode, which is all the rage at the moment.
Yes, that it is.
And they made their big declaration to thunderous applause. There will be no loot boxes.
Yes.
No randomized loot.
There were a couple of really cute, beautiful kind of games. I'm really like Unraveled 2, which just looks beautiful, and we can play co-op.
Love a good co-op. They always stand out because it seems that 3 out of every 4 games have blood galore, shooting, bang, bang, aliens impaling people, and then you have little yarn people walking through a forest. And it's like,
it's so nice.
a breath of fresh air.
When everything's either set in war or sports or post-apocalyptic kind of stories, to have something that's really cute and beautiful, still tells a really good story, is refreshing, I think.
We need more post-apocalyptic sports games. Actually, Death Row on the original Xbox was a great one. It was like a cyber frisbee, but violence was encouraged. It was great.
There was also the Command and Conquer Rivals, which is a mobile game with strategy and... interestingly enough, like the little promo video that they did, I found kind of engaging, and then it's funny when you see the actual gameplay on the phone. It looks so basic compared to the like this big CGI trailer that they have. And I know they do that just
with like 1,000 soldiers, and then it goes to just a phone screen that someone's just going tap, tap, tap.
And I'm just like going, oh, I want to play with those graphics. But anyway.
There will be a lot of people who grew up with the Command and Conquer series. I know a lot of people who are big fans, and I know for a fact that they will pounce on that as soon as it's available.
The one, though, that really stood out to me in this conference is an indie game, and had this really nervous but very sweet and sincere presenter from the studio talking about Sea of Solitude, and it looked really eerie, a little scary even at times, but like it had a profound story behind it. And I think it's her personal story even from the way she was describing it and introducing it, that it comes from her real life experience and turned into a game. But yeah, that's one I think I want to keep an eye out for. I have a feeling it's going to be a special game.
Yeah, like similar to Hellblade, which came out recently, where it sort of looks into more mental distress and anxiety issues that people have and sort of channeling that into a narrative but still letting people connect with that feeling.
Absolutely.
It looks awesome. I love the art style. I love the themes and stuff. It just looks like it's going to be a great story told.
Absolutely. Then we had Xbox.
Can I just say, the Xbox Game Pass, where they have their sort of subscription-based, it's almost like a rental system. You pay for your month. You get this catalogue of games you can play pretty much straight away with no further expense. All their first-party games going forward are going to be launching on that day one.
That's pretty good.
So if you already have that subscription, it's like more cake than you can possibly eat.
And a good way to try games that you may not want to put, say, $90 down on. Mm-hmm. You could rent it, try it out for a month. If you don't like it...
Well, video stores are a dead thing, and that's how you used to be able to test if a game was worth buying.
Yeah.
And if no demo was available, you'd go and hire a couple games for a night and see what you liked.
And some games you can finish in a couple of days. You could play it all for that low price instead of paying full price. So it's a great budget way, I think, to play some of these games.
Yeah. So what caught your eye out of the Microsoft press conference?
Kingdom Hearts 3. I mean, obviously, that's one that's going to be talked about quite a bit throughout E3. But it's the first time ever on an Xbox that they have Kingdom Hearts. It's usually
Kingdom Hearts has been on every possible console, handheld, everything.
Yes. So I think they're very excited to have it, and it was just wonderful to see some more story things, to see Frozen in there and Tangled, and I'm like, the Disney nerd in me as well as the anime nerd or otaku in me is just like,
there's
melting.
no shame. It looked great.
Melting.
We had a new Halo revealed, Halo Infinite. Hard to tell what that's about. It was more just a little teaser.
Yeah.
There are other big franchises. Gears of War got a new entry. Gears 5.
Laura Bailey is
They've
back.
taken the of War out of the title. It is just Gears 5.
It's like, or is it the Fast and Furious? How many times did that title change?
Too fast.
Yeah,
Too furious.
That's what
Too many
Gears
name
is.
changes.
Yep, pretty much.
There are other big ones. Crackdown, which has not seen the light of day in many, many years.
Terry Crews, baby.
Terry
I love
Crews
Terry Crews.
automatically adds a little extra panache to anything that he is involved in.
Absolutely. There are some celebrities, when they shoehorn them into video games, you're kind of like, oh, what are you doing? But then there are others that you're like, yeah, okay, I'm cool with that. I'm cool. I love Terry Crews. Happy to have him in a game or play as him, depending on what the go is. But just even if he's only in the trailer, immediately you've got my attention because it's Terry Crews.
I'm interested to see if that actually has evolved further than what it was, because that was an early sort of open world third-person shooter with powers. But Saints Row basically did that in Saints Row 4.
Yeah.
So are they going to change the formula up? I'm interested in seeing what they do there. I love Cuphead. And there was some more Cuphead revealed.
Yeah. Looks like potential DLC. They didn't really clarify if it was like a sequel or just add-on.
It could well be just an add-on, but they got a new character, Ms. Chalice. It looks to be food-themed.
Delicious.
Because it was called The Delicious Last Course.
Yes.
So that looks like fun.
Then Battletoads
Boy,
is coming back. That
we
is a
thought
blast from the past.
Command and Conquer was a blast from the past. Battletoads haven't surfaced in many years.
I know.
But they got a big following from those who grew up in the 90s. And I think their names was Zitz, Pimple and Rash.
What great names, right? Oh my goodness. Another game that got announced is The Awesome Adventures of Captain Spirit, which I just think is going to make me cry.
As soon as the logo showed up and the sort of indie music started playing, I thought, this seems Life is Strange-ish.
Yep.
And Don't Nod Entertainment have got it looks like a little spin-off series, just
Yeah.
like they did with the Before the Storm. It's set in the Life is Strange universe.
Yeah.
You're playing as a young child who is escaping into his imagination to deal with some hardships at home. And
Not just at home, it sounds like also at school too, from some of the dialogue. But yeah, it looks beautiful and heartbreaking. But I definitely one that I will be playing as soon as I can.
Now, something that got me the most excited, Dying Light 2 was revealed. I have mentioned that the previous game was one of my favourite games of this current generation, and boy, just some more parkour, jumping off buildings, drop kicking guys in the jaw. It's going to be fun.
And it looks interesting. They seem to have added some more mechanics with the story choices and stuff, the way they were explaining how the choices you make during the day while it's daylight will have a big impact on the way the rest of the game plays as the story progresses. So that looks interesting.
I like that you say in the daylight, because you don't want to be out at night in that game, because that's when the big beasts come out and they're faster and stronger and they will murder you and run for your life unless you have a UV light. Mm-hmm. Fun fact, keep one handy at all times.
Yes. There was Ori and the Will of the Wisps, which is another beautiful game, a sequel.
Mm-hmm. Ori and the Blind Forest, was one of the more successful Xbox exclusives, especially at a time where Sony seemed to be just hitting home run after home run with their exclusive franchises. Ori and the Blind Forest was a glimmer of hope for the Xbox as far as their unique experiences, and we got a sequel shown. Will of the Wisps. Willing the Wisps to do what exactly? Never mind. I'm just a little tongue-tied. I'm excited for Dying Light too.
We're a little bit tired though too. That all the conferences have been at weird hours. I feel very at the moment. The excitement of all these new games being announced kind of keeps me going, but my body feels like I've just a little jet lagged maybe from the weird, strange hours.
Yeah. One other one that was shown at the Xbox conference was leaked ahead of time.
Yes.
Sorry, guys. Just Cause 4.
Yep.
More over-the-top mayhem, open-world sandbox, grappling hooks, explosives. What more could you ask for?
Mm-hmm.
And twisters! There's a big tornado tearing through the island.
Because of course.
That's fun. And at the end of the press conference, what should happen but the Microsoft AI that they were promoting so heavily seemed to take over, and suddenly the screens were glitching and everything was running its own command prompts.
And I was hoping Hal's voice would come over.
It was an awfully eerie shade of red. Cyberpunk 2077 revealed. Bam. Looks great.
Absolutely. For me, so far in E3, my favourite conference that we've had has been with Bethesda.
Was that just Todd Howard's fun games?
Todd Howard was great. He was really fun and engaging, but there was so much that they talked about. And very early on, they mentioned how they were the #1 developer worldwide.
Yeah, I think Metacritic, which takes the average review scores from many sources, their games consistently have...
And collectively.
Yeah, the highest average of the average review scores. And they had them the #1 publisher of last year, I think.
That's so awesome. So good on them. They were talked about Fallout 76, which was announced a little bit earlier. They teased it with their little teaser trailer thingy. And finally we have answers. It's going to be 4 times as big as Fallout 4, but it's going to be online.
The emphasis on multiplayer strikes again.
Yes, it does.
Now, they have mentioned you can play it solo.
Yes.
Which hopefully that doesn't just handicap you.
Because it looked really good. I'm like, this looks like so much fun. And I was very, very excited. And as soon as they said, and it's online, I'm like, no. And I feel like I need to clarify, I'm not totally anti-online games. It's just I feel like... it feels like everything's going that way, but I have a kind of beef with the idea that you pay a lot of money for a game that essentially, give it a decade or two, you might never be able to play it again because the servers will be down.
Yep.
It's more like renting a game and not really owning it.
And
I love owning the game because there are still games from our childhood that we will go and play on their original consoles with all those things. So when things like this happen, I kind of get a little bit up in arms.
Sorry to interrupt you before, but it's another thing. I have gone out of my comfort zone with the Elder Scrolls series and played Elder Scrolls Online. And you don't have that same feeling of exploration and just immersion because you're halfway through walking through a forest hunting a beast of some sort, and Elite Killer X-77 runs through your field of vision and ruins the immersion because his name's in half capitals.
Yeah.
And it just sort of takes you out of it.
I mean, some stuff is amusing, like seeing some of the stuff we've seen with people dancing in a circle doing conga lines and stuff in
In their
towns,
underpants.
or putting on impromptu concerts and stuff. Like, that's funny, but at the same time, it is very game breaking in the sense like you remember that you are playing with other people as opposed to being just in this world.
Yeah.
So if you play for escapism, then that can ruin it a little.
Yeah.
But it can make it fun too. Sometimes it can be fun having friends join you online and playing campaigns together. So there's pros and cons, I think.
Mm-hmm. Well, with the success of Doom a couple of years ago, they've got a new entrant in that series, Doom Eternal.
Mm-hmm.
Looks like it should be just as bloody and good time as the previous one was. And what year is it? We're playing Doom. We're playing Wolfenstein. It seems like it's the early PC days all over again. But there's a new entrant in the Wolfenstein series set in the alternate 1980s. Wolfenstein Youngblood. It's going to be single or co-op. New sort of... It looks like to be another one of those little mini campaigns like they've done with Uncharted: The Lost Legacy and Wolfenstein The Old Blood. This is now the Young Blood. So nice little wording there in their names.
Prey is also getting some updates as well.
Yep. They like to drop and it's available now! And they have the New Game Plus and Survival Mode and things like that included in the existing game right now. But they've also got a paid DLC coming later set on the moon. And it is like a randomized survival puzzle experience because every time you play it, it's going to be different. You'll have different... The stairs might be on fire this time through and aliens in different spots. It's kind of cool.
Yep. Then they talked about Elder Scrolls Blades, which is going to be a game that you can play on your phone, you can play on consoles, you can play on pretty much any single device that will connect to it, and it'll be free, which just seems so cool. And that if someone's playing on VR, you can play with them while you're on your phone. So that is kind of cool. And they were doing some demonstrations of that. I think they said it was coming out sort of soonish. They didn't give an exact date.
Yeah, there is going to be early access you can register for to get a little jump on it, but it's still a little way away. It's going to be probably about another 3 to 4 months.
But not too far away. And then Elder Scrolls 6. They dropped that bomb on us. We're like, hello.
Right at the end.
Yes.
Greetings. And not only that, they said a brand new single-player IP.
Starfield.
They're heading to space.
They are.
Bethesda in space.
They've conquered the fantasy realm and the post-apocalyptic realm, and now it's time to head to the stars. So I'm excited. They really didn't go into any detail. It was just very much a teaser of, hey, there's a thing in space floating, and vroom, and that was it. Like, here's the name. So we have really nothing to go on, but I am excited. I guess a part of me is hoping for more Mass Effect-ish kind of stuff.
It's going to fill the Mass Effect-shaped hole in your heart.
A little bit. I'm just hoping they did specify that it was a single-player campaign that they were working on. Yeah. So I'm like, yes!
And just to finish off, probably my laugh-out-loud moment of the entire conferences so far.
Yep.
They revealed a mock trailer for Skyrim, the very special edition,
yes.
where it's been on the Switch, it's been on Xbox, it's been on PC, it's been on PlayStation, it's been on everything. Yep. It's now available on Alexa, and it's voice-controlled. Not quite, but should be fun. If that ever came out, people would probably buy it again.
It was funny seeing him playing it on his fridge and then all the ice coming out. If you haven't seen that trailer, just look it up on YouTube. Very, very funny.
Yeah, good stuff.
So there is a lot more that we got to unpack. There's still plenty of E3 that's happening as we speak. So as the week continues, we will be doing another bonus episode in between our normal releases. So look for that in a couple of days, just as E3 wraps up. We will be back in the booth unpacking everything fully, touching on Nintendo as well, Sony, and all the other studios that still have things to announce. And we'll go into much greater detail and gush about all the games that we're super excited for and all the super awkward moments of the week.
Oh, you can always look up the awkward moments of E3 2018. I'm sure it will be like
There'll be a
35 minutes long.
Montage on YouTube. I'm sure there will be at least one of those. So maybe we'll share that on our social media pages too.
Right, this episode is running long. Give me your quick gaming goals. What are you working on this week? Have you finished Cold Steel 2?
No. I will though. I have in...
Don't forget, there's going to be not much time this week because we're watching E3.
Yeah.
We're recording podcasts.
Yeah.
It's going to be crammed.
My gaming goal this week while E3 is on is to stay afloat with the PlayStation Challenge at the moment to get a trophy a day.
Mm-hmm.
We both signed up for that.
Days of play.
Yes. So at the moment, I've been playing Goat Simulator to get really easy trophies because yesterday I think I had 10 minutes before midnight because I was out literally all day. I had no chance to play. So I had to rush home, chuck on something and look up a really easy trophy and do that.
There's no guilt in spamming a 30-second trophy from Goat Simulator.
For this week, that's all I'm going to focus on is just kind of keeping afloat with that challenge while we've got the chaos of E3 around us. And then I'll have a more serious one for next time.
Yeah, there's not going to be much time for gaming. So maybe we'll just leave it open-ended for this week. And
yes.
We'll pop down some new gaming goals next week.
Absolutely. Not in the bonus episode, next week's proper episode, I think.
Oh my gosh, there's so much work to do.
I know, but we hope you're enjoying the show and that you'll enjoy us as we continue talking about E3 on social media. We'll be live tweeting things as they come up and if we're awake for it, of course.
Yep.
And sharing highlights and trailers that we're excited for. We'd love you to join the conversation. You can find us on Facebook at The Gaming Lovers or on Twitter at Brendo and Jem. All the links are on our website at thegaminglovers.com. Thanks so much for joining us. Until next time.
I have E3 jet lag.
I know.
All right. Have a good week, everybody.
Sayonara.
Thanks for listening to the Gaming Lovers podcast. For more episodes or to watch some live stream gaming, visit thegaminglovers.com.